What's up, homie? So today we're going to be walking through my checklist and my mindset when I approach mixing drums. So I want to keep this one kind of quick and concise, so let's just jump right into it. So the drums that we're going to be using for this example are off of a track that I have available over on YouTube and on my site. It's Wilting Pedals. And I just thought that this was a really good example to kind of showcase some of the techniques and the thought processes that I go through when I am mixing drums. So the first thing that I do, first step, is to always make sure that I have gain staged everything properly. Essentially, we're just going to check the levels, and we want to make sure that everything is between -6 and -18 dB. That's basically your sweet spot, so you're leaving headroom for your effect chains, you're leaving headroom for mastering at the end, and all of that sort of stuff. And you're making sure that you're getting a clean signal. And it's just a good habit to get into, because if you ever end up mixing on analog gear, it becomes less of a suggestion to do this and more of a necessity, because you're going to be introducing artifacting and just you're going to lose a lot of control and get weird results once you start pushing higher than that into a lot of analog gear. So to speed through this, you can use the level meter if you need to, but honestly, you can just kind of check at a glance and make sure that we're falling within that boundary. So let's take a look at those. Snare's good, kick's good. Floor toms are good. Hats are good, they're low. Overheads are a little hot. All right, and then our room mics are pretty good too. Maybe our room mics could come up a little bit. So what we're going to do with that, instead of turning up our fader, so it's better to put on like a mix tool and just pull up your gain through here instead of adjusting the gain on your fader. You also have to remember that your fader comes post effects. So if you're trying to get everything set going into your effects chain, you want all of your stuff pre-effects, and your fader is a post. So you want to be doing it through the mix tool. All right, so there we're hitting more like 12, 10, somewhere in that range. And I just realized I made a goof. On our overhead, we want to be doing a mix tool as well. So instead of boosting the overhead, we want to be pulling back the overhead. Okay, so trimming that by about 8 dB seems to do the trick. Okay, now we're going to be doing clipping. So the reason we clip is because drums are a very transient, heavy instrument. So you're going to be losing a lot of headroom when you reach the mastering stage if you don't clip your drums in the mixing stage. So there's ways to do this, and I'll show you, where you're not going to lose any audio quality, but you will free up a lot of headroom. So we're going to start with the kick, and for the sake of showing, I like the Neutron 5 clipper just because it is visual, so I can visualize what I'm doing. And for the sake of showing you, it's a lot easier. So these are all of our transients. Basically, a drum is just a transient. And essentially what we're doing when we're clipping is we're knocking off the top of that transient. So you can see these little notches. That's how much we knocked off of each kick. Now, a good thing to do here is we can keep an eye on our output meter over here. So without clipping, if we look, we're getting minus 18 dB. With clipping, you can watch this over here, the minus 18. And we start taking this off. And the sound doesn't change, but we've just freed up several dB of headroom. And the cool thing about, same deal with the Neutron 5 clipper, is it has this delta button, so we can click that and we can hear the difference of what we're clipping off. So those tiny little clicks, that's what we're shaving off the top. So another nice feature of the Neutron 5 clipper is the fact that it's multi-band. So I can drop in multiple bands. So I can clip just the sub information. And the nature of sound frequencies, your lower hertz, basically the human ear is less responsive to lower frequencies. So as you're mixing things, you'll build up a lot of volume and a lot of gain and a lot of noise in the lower frequencies that you can't actually hear, and you're going to lose a lot of your headroom for when you're mixing and mastering at the end of your song, just from that build up in the low frequencies. So a trick you can do is you can clip your low end harder than you clip the rest of your frequency spectrum. And the nice thing about having a multi-band is we can do this. So you'll notice that our low frequencies are coming in softer than our high frequencies. This has a lot to do with it's a fraction of the size, but we can shave these down without affecting the sound. And that's going to buy you a decent amount of headroom. So this is with basically no clipping. We're looking at minus 17.5 with clipping. Just that little move picked us up half a dB of headroom. And that doesn't seem like a lot, but in a low frequency spectrum, that is a lot, especially once you start layering in bass and other things like that. That will make a difference. Okay, so we only need to clip a little bit. We want to be very subtle about this. So again, let's check that. We'll bypass all the clipping. And if we look over here at the meter, minus 17.5 with clipping. Minus 19. So we picked up, or we've gained about 2 dB of headroom. So essentially, we just move across all of our instruments, and we do this very subtly across each instrument, or across each mic in our drum setup with the snare, pre-clipper, or no clipper. So minus 18 on that bar with the clipper. Wow. Minus 23. Big difference. And really no sound change. And then we just move through all of our instruments and we do the exact same thing. So, another cool thing, I know I'm just like singing the praises of the Neutron 5 clipper. You can do multi-band clipping, which is amazing. But you can also do mid-side clipping. So essentially what you're doing is instead of being in the stereo frequency, you are setting that up so you're running through mid-side, and you're running different settings through each band from the mid and from the side, so they're all independent. Okay, so here's before. We're looking at about minus 25 dB. We could probably boost these a little bit more. And then here's after. And we're looking at minus 28. Where was I? Okay, hi-hat. We picked up perceived loudness, because again, if we play this whole section, see how they feel a little bit louder? So, essentially through that, we made them a little crisper, a little tighter. They're cutting through the mix a little harder, but they're technically quieter, which is this really cool thing. So we've increased the perceived loudness, but we brought down the actual loudness. So anyways, on to shakers. So here we are again. Here we are again. So here we are again. Without any clipping. I saw minus 23. Here's with clipping. Minus 26. No difference in the sound. It's also probably good to point out that I'm mixing everything in mono. So that way I'm making sure that every little change that I'm doing is mono compatible. And I'm mixing from a place of making sure that everything works for a PA setup, because a lot of big PA setups are set up on mono. So if you are mixing ever for, EDM, house, dance music, club setups are typically on mono. And then on top of that, you're also mixing for phones, because a lot of phone mixes are in mono. Also, one that a lot of people don't think about is you take your earbud, right? And a lot of people think, oh, I never listen to music in mono. Well, if you put one earbud in, your phone is switching the settings to mono. A lot of the earbuds, if they're like nice earbuds, they typically are, because they're muting this one. A lot of them have in-ear detection, so if you put both in, it switches to a stereo mix. If you take one out but leave the other one in, then you've got a mono mix. So you need to be making sure that your mixes are actually mono compatible, even though you may be listening to music with both earbuds in. Not a lot of people are. If somebody's at work, working in a kitchen, a workshop, really wherever, a lot of people are working with one earbud in. So most music is actually being consumed in mono. So you got to be very aware of that. Just entire parts of a song are going to disappear. Your reverbs are going to disappear. All of that sort of stuff. So you need to be making sure that your reverbs, your delays, all that sort of stuff is mono compatible. Okay, onto the ride. Okay. So we've gain matched those two. So you can hear those clicks. Super subtle. But you see how you can hear, I'll just boost the gain on this. See how there's a little bit of tone in there? That means we've taken it a little bit too far. Okay, that's where we want it there. So, what I'm doing right here looks insane. But I want, this ride in particular is very pingy, very poppy, and doesn't have a lot of sustain. So by bringing up the soft clip boost, I'm trying to increase that sustain. There's a lot of different ways you could do this. You could do this with a transient shaper, where we can boost our sustain, mess with our attack. We can kind of roll the attack off, adjust our speed, whatever. But we could boost that sustain through a transient shaper. But again, we have the ability to kind of do that through the transient shaper or through the clipper. So this is one of those instances where there's multiple ways you could go about it. This is the way that I like to do it, just because it's integrated all into one plugin. I don't have to load up multiple things. And again, if we look at our meter, 22.5. almost 10 dB dropped off of that. That's insane. 10 dB cut off. And it's louder if you listen. And our meter is reading lower on the output than on the input. So perceived loudness is a huge deal when you're mixing drums. Because just because something is louder and you're turning it up, sometimes actually means you're making it quieter. Now we can jump over here to the overheads. All right. Okay. So we finished our drums for the most part. There's one last piece to integrate, and that's the room. So the room is super interesting, and you can use the room in a lot of different ways. One of the things that I like to do with the room is to connect it to an expander, and then we sidechain that against our snare. As if we just solo this. So, you hear what that's doing? Every time the snare hits, it brings in the room mics a little bit. And this is really cool because it almost brings the drums to life once that snare comes in. So there you go. That's a little thing that I like to do. It just kind of gives a little bit of life. And then another thing that I'm going to do is, I know it's goofy, but I'm going to add a room reverb to the room. And we're going to put that before everything else. So you see what this is doing? See how I can control the size of the room now? So when I blend this back in with the rest of the drums, the room seems a lot bigger now. But then if we turn that off, so I haven't changed any of the actual drum sounds here. All of that is still tight, very forward and punchy, and you're not losing any of the energy there. But what I'm doing is with the room mics, I am adjusting the size and kind of the tail. So I can give it a longer tail, I can give it a shorter tail. I can make it almost sound like a double, like an echo, like we're in a very poorly treated, I don't know, auditorium hall, or like we're in a back room. All of these different things. There's so much that you can do with this room reverb. So one more thing that I'm going to do. I'm going to add an effects channel. And essentially what this effects channel is it's going to be crunch. So Easy Drummer includes crunch. I don't like to use it because, again, same deal. I like to keep my reps in. I am using digital drums, and they're technically MIDI drums. But I like to keep my reps up as if I'm recording and working with an actual fully mic'd drum kit. So with crunch, we're sending the room out to crunch. We can also send the overheads over. So now that we've got our overheads, now we can start adding all kinds of crazy stuff. We can pull in an 1176. So essentially right there, we're just kind of bringing everything up and kind of flattening it out. And then we can add a, I like to do a yellow drive. It's goofy, it messes with the sound, it like breaks everything. And then a nice thing about using Studio One is we can use a splitter. So we can compress the main file, split it, run a clean out, and then one side through the drive. So we can kind of blend our tones a little bit better. Now I like to crank it. So if we blend that in with our drums that we already have, then we can maybe pass it through a compressor. So what I'm doing here is I'm just kind of evening out the sound and trying to blend together the clean and the destroyed tone. And I'm pushing it in a little hard so that it also builds up some artifacting and gets some weird tones, because this is an instance where, creatively speaking, it can pay to do that. So let's blend that back in. So there you go. There's our crunch. And now, one thing that I did not mention is I sidechain my kick to the bass. And when I'm sidechaining to the bass, I like to use Shaper Box. You can kind of use whatever. You can use a plain compressor. You can use, you know, a dynamic EQ. There's a lot of different tools that basically do the same thing. In this case, it's more like a MIDI trigger. So we sidechain this to the kick, like that. And then every time the kick plays, you'll see over here that the bass dips out. So essentially what this is doing, and I'll just explain this briefly, this is leaving everything 100 hertz and higher completely alone. It doesn't touch any of those frequencies, but everything 100 hertz and under, it is ducking that for just the tiniest of second for that transient of the kick, so that way the kick cuts through and the bass comes right back in. So it's just pulling it right out as soon as that kick hits. And it's just to make sure that that transient of the kick comes through, because we don't really want the tail of the kick. We want the tail to be the bass. So that's the way that I use that. So anyways, that is pretty much how I mix drums. We're going to do a before and after. So drums with all of our processing on. So there you go. A little adjustment to taste. Minus 18, minus 17 and a half, minus 17 and a half with all the clipping, all the EQing, everything done. Without any processing, minus 12 dB. So we picked up a lot of space. We tightened up the drums. We gave it a little bit more room ambience so that it sounds like it's sitting in a room. Overall, those are pretty much what I'm trying to do. I am adjusting the levels, gain staging everything so that everything just sits nicely together. I am taming the transients, and then lastly, you're trying to put it into a space to make sure that it's cohesive and you're creating a space for the song to happen. And then it's just a matter of tying in all the other instruments through that. Anyways, I hope this shines a little bit of clarity on kind of how to approach mixing drums. If you have any questions or you need help with anything, you can head over to my website and reach out to me over there. Send me an email at jordanleemusic.com. If you're looking for somebody to just mix your song, you can reach out to me at same email, jordanleemusic.com, and give me a quote. Basically, send me the details of your project, tell me about the scale, give me an idea on your budget, and I'll figure out if we're a good fit to work together. Anyways, I'm sure there are some snacks somewhere in your house, so go and find some of those, bring them back, sit down, and let's hang out. I got some more videos, so check all those out. I don't know, there's probably something somewhere around. Super good outro. See ya.